held in Springfield. Straight ahead.
And we are expecting a stretch of unsettled weather beginning tonight. I'll have the details in my first alert forecast.
From the 2024 Station of the Year Merit Award winner, this is Western Mass News on Fox 6.
Holyoke Public School educators holding group walk-ins throughout this morning, expressing their dissatisfaction with the state's plan to exit receivership. Thanks for joining us for Western Mass News at 10 o'clock on this Thursday. I'm Amanda Martin Ryan. Western Mass News reporter Reagan Lockery joins us live in studio with more on today's demonstration and the response from the state. Reagan?
That's right, Amanda. As the name suggests, a walk-in is the opposite of a walk-out. People gather outside of school or other building early to protest. And that's exactly what happened outside of Dean Technical High School this morning.
My sign here says strong union equals strong students.
Dean Tech is just one of several schools within the Holyoke Public School District to host walk-ins. Teachers were seen lined up holding signs, spreading their message as students arrived at school.
We want to show that we are on the side of students. We are on the side of making sure that our students have what they need and have the teachers that they need.
These walk-ins coming after Education Secretary Patrick Tutwiler announced plans for exit assurances, or how the transition from state to local control will play out.
The issuance of the exit assurances is another key milestone in Holyoke's transition out of receivership, as they will allow local leaders and stakeholders to plan for the future with more certainty. With the support that will be provided by the exit assurances, I am purely confident that they will be well prepared to resume full governance of the district on July 1st as planned.
Teachers we spoke with say they're unhappy with the exit assurances, saying they felt excluded from making decisions about the measures staying under state control, including the length of the school day, school year, pay, and professional development. This prompting members of the Holyoke Teachers Association to take action Thursday morning.
The receivership has been a failure. There have been massive problems retaining teachers because of receivership, because we can't bargain over these things and we can't get fair wages and fair leave and fair length of school year and school day.
Regardless, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education doubling down on their decisions in a statement provided to Western Mass News as a response to Thursday's protest. Desi tells us the assurances announced Monday prioritize programming, communication, and professional development, and were developed with input from local stakeholders, including the teachers union. The statement also saying in part, these measures are needed to provide stability and ensure that Holyoke Public Schools are set up for success when they exit receivership. Now, teachers plan on working under their contract times to draw attention to how much work they do when routinely staying late and coming in early, and they want the right to bargain over their contract. Reporting live in studio, Reagan Lockery for Western Mass News.
Reagan, thank you for that live report. New tonight, a